This is the second video on how to create a spreadsheet to do your network diagrams, and in this one I'm going to explain the early start sheet. But first, I did make a change to the arrow sheet. If you notice, before we had these numbers going on down, so I added this to it. I say, if you're going to just change this one, it says if C5 is equal to nothing, comma, nothing, comma, then max. Okay. That way, if nothing is in column C, it will put a blank here in column D, which it does right down here. Where you have nothing in C, it puts nothing in D. And just by adding that code. Okay. And so once you add that to D5, just copy that on down. Control C, and then copy that on down to, I think, row 105, and you have it. So now let's get on with the purpose of this video, is the early start. Now, if you remember, the equation for early start, let's go to the network diagram and see this best. The early start, let's take M2, is the earliest start of the predecessor, which here is M1, which has an early start of 0, plus the duration of the predecessor, which is 3. So early start of M2 is 3. So to get the early start, we simply have to add the early start of the predecessor and add to that the duration of the predecessor. Now let's see if we can find, here's 2 coming into this one. Now this early start's a little bit trickier in that we have to take the maximum of our calculation from M2 and M3. So here we come up with 10, and let's see how we get that. Early start would be the early start of M2, which is 3, plus 7 would be 10. And here we would have 3 plus 5 would be 8, and it's taken the max. And we don't do it here in this diagram, but the early start is 10. So that is the max of these two, and it's displayed the right value here. That's actually coming from the table over in network, where we end up putting our early start, and I believe there's the one for E3. That's the one we were looking at. No, we're looking at M4. Let's see. M4. Clear down here is 10. Okay. But these early starts are coming from our early start sheet. So now said, so these numbers in these cells correspond to where we have a, let's say this, if we don't have an arc or we don't have an arrow, we don't put anything in this, okay? So we got to look back to the arrows. So let's see, where was this? M4. M4. Let's see, I don't see that 10. Yeah, okay. But anyway, so each cell is doing the calculation of the previous plus the in the early start is doing the let's see where that M4 is. That's the reason I couldn't find it. No, 15. That must be it. M2. It's 10. Okay. Was it M2? Let's see. M4 early start is 10. Let's see if I can find that now. There's errors, early start, M4. There it is, 10. Okay. So the early starts are in the highlighted yellow row, and you can see that's taken the max of that column, okay? So there is the calculation that came up with 10, and here's the one that came up with 8. So that 10 was equal to, see, now you can see that these values are coming, so that's one of the, so that 10 is made up of the early start of the predecessor plus the duration of the predecessor. So you can see here we got network G, so it's looking up here the early start of the predecessor, all right, and the predecessor is where? Is A14 is 10, all right. So see the A14, that would be the predecessor's number. And then we have the G, which is in the network diagram, sheet, G are the early starts. So the early start of, let's see, G, and why is A14 the, well, this is for M2. Let's see, so M4, and we've already we determined there's an arc here, you see, by looking over, there has to be a number in, what's that, is that right here? Right here, I think, okay. M4, let's see now, early start. So we're looking, if arrows O14 is not equal to nothing, then we calculate. Otherwise, we put the blank, double quotation. O14 over an arrows is O14 is where this 15 is, okay? So arc 15 is from M2 to M4, M2 to M4, and that's the one that had the 7 plus the 3 is 10. See how that works? All right, so we got early start. So we got that calculation for the M2 to M4, and then M4 also then has going into it M3 to M4, and that calculates to be an 8 with the early start of M3 being this by this equation. That'd be that A15, which would be 11, early start of the 11th row, and G is the early start column in network. There's the network page. And then we add to that the duration of A15, row A15, which is row A15 is M3, and F, column F in network are our durations, see? So that's how that works. Okay. But all you need to know is once you get this, put this formula in from any cell here, I think you start here, and you can just copy that throughout the whole table. Okay, so there again, pause the video, get your formula, type it in, you got it. Now let me just go through all the formulas, all the numbers here. And by the way, and this yellow row, remember when we're doing forward pass, calculating early starts, we take the max. So we take the max, like there's that 10 and 8. We say we take the max here of that column, okay? And that is the early start in of M4, Okay, now we need to transfer these values back to our arrows network sheet, and that's done right here. It's there. Where's that? M4. There's our 10, and that's going from M4 to, yeah, well, M3 to M4, which is it from M2 to M4. Okay, but we've transferred these over. Let's see if pick one here. Do single. This is taking care of the blanks. If C9 is equal to start, we put a 0. I forget what that's doing. Oh, up here. Starts out with a 0. Okay, if you're going from start, early start's 0. Otherwise, we do the index function. There's our 10. So we do index ES D4, early start sheet, D4 to AL04. So that's early start sheet from D4 to AL04. A4 to AL04, and row 4 is the LSA. And we go all the way over to ALO, and that's over 100 or so, okay? Okay. And like I say, if you want to expand this to do more activity, you have to move those on over. So that's how we transfer this yellow into the network right here. Column G then has the early starts from the early start sheet. You know. And of course, the maximum down here is the duration. Well, I take that back. Now let's say 75 the duration. The early start of finish will be the duration. The early start of P10 is 65. Let's look at our diagram. I haven't looked at the diagram way over there. I don't even know if I go there and not mess up my... There's finish. Early start 75. Early finish of P10 is 75. But, and then let's go back to the network sheet. I think then once we have the early start column, the early finish column is simply adding the duration to the early start. So the duration of E2 is 10. So to get the early finish, we just add 10 to the early start column, and that's done here. And there again, we got to take care of the blanks. And if it's start, we put a 0. Okay. If the activity C6 is start, we put a 0 in. Otherwise, we add F, column F, the duration, to the early start. Now we get that. So you see how those cell formulas are? Yeah, so that one is using the index function to look up in that yellow row the early start for E1. Okay, that's our activity, E1. Okay, I think, let me make sure I've got all these formulas for you. First row, just numbers. Second row is this formula. Let's see, it looks like those are just numbers, but I don't know why. Task number. This is the task number. They wouldn't have to be actually the row number. I mean what's down the left side. Then we've got the activities, and we simply really just using this index function to copy them over from the network sheet, and using J1 as the index. So that comes down to the C, column C in network are activities. See, column C are our activities. And then we just go down the right amount, the right row number to get here. Okay, there again, we say we just take the max of whatever in this column, and the columns are the sum of the early starts of the predecessor and the duration of the predecessors. All right, I think I beat this page to death. Okay, there's this is the this would be, what is this? M1 3. Oh, I think M1 3 is the G. That's the early start of M1 is 3. M1. No. Wait a minute. No, it's the early start. No, it's the early finish, maybe. I don't know. I forget now what this column's doing. Let's see. I don't think I use it. That's not used. Let's see. It's network plus the index. Must be for just the start. It does have the finish right here, the total time. Okay, so that is the early start page, and that concludes this video. Next video, we'll do the latest finish sheet.